Hits 96, we are Chattanooga's #1 hit music station. Gino D here with you, and joining me now via the phone line, a man of many talents. You'll know his work from great television series like Star Trek: The Next Generation, the more recent Big Bang Theory, and also one of my favorite movies ever, and we will talk about it, Stand By Me. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg, really. He's an actor, a producer, writer, narrator, TV host, author, the list goes on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Wil Wheaton to the show. Wil, thanks for taking the time and speaking with me. It's a true honor.
It's really cool to be here. Wow, when you describe me that way, I kind of almost begin to feel like maybe I'm kind of cool a little bit. I'm going to take a minute to wrap my head around that.
Yes, it is quite the resume. And today you're joining me to talk a bit about your new memoir, or maybe newly updated memoir is a better way to put it. It's called Still Just A Geek, available everywhere now, wherever books are sold. People can pick it up. And I want you to explain Still Just A Geek, because it really is an opportunity for you to almost time travel a bit with your readers and comment once again on your experiences. Am I getting the right picture here?
Yeah, you are. Around 2004, I wrote a memoir called Just A Geek that was the story of creating my website at wilwheaton.net and starting the second chapter of my life, where I was really embracing being a writer and kind of coming to terms with the reality of my career and what it meant for me and what I wanted to do with it and who I wanted to be as a person. And Still Just A Geek is looking back at that 20 years later with the benefit of growth and healing and trauma recovery and hindsight, and kind of filling in some gaps for myself. And then also for the reader to sort of look at these things and revisit it, and then talk about how this stuff has aged and how I've changed over the last 20 years.
And I know that the book is a personal journey for you, dealing with mental health, of course, like you mentioned, some of the things that you had to deal with growing up, being in that limelight, in addition to, of course, your insight on just your life experiences, looking at it at an older age. What do you hope people will take away after reading Still Just A Geek?
I think it's really important that we give ourselves the opportunity to grow and change and define ourselves rather than letting something external define us. A huge part of my story and an enormous part of my identity that I didn't discuss at all in Just A Geek is that I'm a survivor of child abuse and exploitation, and that really affected a lot of everything that I wrote about and all the choices I made and where I was at that moment in my life. I was very hard on myself. I had a lot of really unreasonable expectations for myself. I took a lot of things personally that I shouldn't have. And doing Still Just A Geek kind of allowed me to look back at all of that stuff and see the wounded person I was and find compassion and empathy for myself so that I could heal a lot of that and not carry it along anymore. I expect that this book can be experienced in a lot of different by people who read it. I hope that there's a funny story in it that people will enjoy. I hope that there's some kind of behind-the-scenes stuff that people will enjoy seeing. But there's a big story in there about trauma recovery and about not being defined by that for the rest of our adult lives. And for my fellow travelers in this particular part of the world, I hope that maybe there's a little bit of a roadmap and maybe a little bit of some support to help people who are kind of experiencing the same things that I've been experiencing.
Yes, I think people will definitely can relate to that for sure. Again, I'm talking to Wil Wheaton, the author of his new memoir, Still Just A Geek. And on a lighter note, Wil, I do want to go a little bit about these experiences, these behind-the-scenes experiences, because you are very well known, especially in the sci-fi pop culture world. You played Wesley Crusher on Star Trek: The Next Generation. I know you're still majorly involved with Star Trek. I know that you host your own program, talking with former stars of the show. I know it's tough to sum all of that up in a couple sentences, but can you give us a little quick synopsis about what that experience was like?
It's amazing. For people who are familiar with my character, Wesley Crusher from Next Generation, there's a moment in the series where Wesley's just like, you know what? I know that you have all expected me to stay in Starfleet and be a captain someday. This is absolutely not what I want to do. There's something different for me in the universe. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go find it. And he leaves Starfleet and he leaves the Enterprise. And I did a very similar thing as a person. I left Star Trek and I left the set and I went out to find myself and figure out what was important to me. And an enormous part of that journey was figuring out that, you know what? The real person who I really am is very, very different from the person that I pretended to be in an effort to get my dad to love me. And I'm really okay being that person now. And I think that part, this particular part of the story is really about following that journey and like coming back around to a place where like, oh man, all the great parts about Star Trek, all that stuff that I loved that I had kind of forgotten about, I don't have to let go of that. I can actually heal the parts that are painful so that the parts that I love are all back in a full, rich, meaningful part of my life. When I got off the phone with you, I'm getting ready to go to the set to do Ready Room. We're doing Ready Room for Strange New Worlds today. And it is just glorious. I love it. It's a wonderful, wonderful job. And just it's such an incredible blessing to share my love of Star Trek and the Star Trek universe and really embrace and own the privilege I have being part of what is now called legacy Star Trek. Yeah. Like I interview people who are actors on the current Star Trek series now, and nearly all of them tell me that they're excited to talk to somebody who is part of like, existing Star Trek. Like they talk about us the way we talked about the original series cast. And I got to tell you, wrapping my head around that reality has really been a trip.
I can imagine. When people see your passion for it too, I mean, clearly you're more of a fan than anything, I think, when it comes down to it, and that's why people enjoy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
People enjoy watching you and do your thing. Then for more recent times, and if I don't mention Big Bang Theory, I think our listeners would be disappointed. You get to play a fictionalized version of yourself and kind of have that opportunity to kind of poke fun at the sci-fi culture, poke fun at yourself a little bit. What was that experience like? It must have been pretty amazing.
It was great. Every day I was on the set at Big Bang Theory was the best day of my life. They were just an amazing group of people, an incredibly kind and generous cast that made me feel like I was part of their family from the very first time I set foot on stage 25. I had the incredible privilege of working with them for 12 seasons, and it was just spectacular. That character was so much fun. And the weirdest part, and the thing that I think I will probably be reflecting on for the rest of my life, is just the weird reality of playing this fictionalized version of myself. More than once, I've had a person come to me out in the world and say, "Oh my gosh, I love you on The Big Bang Theory. I know that you play Wil Wheaton, but I don't know what your name is."
Unbelievable.
And that's really fun because there was a time where I was like, oh no, they're just like, I'm not going to be, I'm going to be like so heavily identified as this guy. And then realizing, oh no, they get it. They get that it's a character. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and you did a fantastic role in that. And the rivalry between you and Sheldon and the whole thing is just fantastic. And again, if we had more time, I would love to dive deeper into that. But I have to do myself justice now. That one was for our listeners. Not that I wasn't a fan of Big Bang Theory, but I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite movies of all time was Stand By Me. Of course, directed by Rob Reiner, and one of my absolute favorites, especially as a child. And I've heard you mention before when it comes to this film, the experience of watching it as a kid growing up, and then again watching it as an adult. It's almost a completely different movie, or at least a completely different experience. Expound on that a little bit, because I think it's a very good point.
That story just communicates itself in a lot of different ways, and it talks to different people in the audience in different ways. When you're a kid, it's about getting away with something, right? When you're a kid, it's about having an adventure with your friends and remembering those moments in childhood, like we say in the movie, where you never have friends like the ones you did when you were 12.
Yep.
As an adult, you can see how this is about how parents affect their children and the choices parents make and how the parents treat their children affect who those children are and the expectations in the community, how they affect the children. You know, you can see it in River Phoenix's character's Chris's story of this kind, loving, gentle person who cannot overcome the image of his family and his town and how tragic and terrible that is. In Gordy's story, you see this character who is just the invisible kid in his house, and he is just trying so hard to be seen and just, accepted and loved. I had no idea when we did Stand By Me that Gordy and I were exactly the same person. I didn't understand. I was 12. I didn't know that the reason I could be Gordy was because I was also invisible in my house, that I only existed as a thing. And then only when I was making money or being successful. So for me personally, Stand By Me tells a really personal, unique, special story. And I know that for adults, they can see, most people in the audience can identify with the four main characters in one or more ways. And I have heard from adults now who saw it as kids and tell me, oh yeah, it's a very different movie. And it's not just about friendship. It's not just about one thing. And I didn't really understand what that meant. People have been saying that to me my whole life. And I didn't really understand what that meant until I was in my 30s and watched it as an adult and as a dad.
It's an absolute classic, and it's timeless and still stands strong today. I mean, I think anybody can relate to it. So I just wanted to give my hats off to you. Again, one of my favorite movies and will be forever.
Thank you.
Absolutely, I love it.
Thank you. I'm very grateful and privileged that it's part of my life. That is part of my legacy that's going to outlive me, and that is a cool thing.
Very cool. Thank you, Will, so much for the time. I know we really just scratched the surface of the projects that you've been involved in. I know you do a ton of voice work and writing and hosting, and if we had more time, we would love to talk about that. But for right now, we'll focus on Still Just a Geek, available in stores now. What's next for you when it comes down to it? Anything you can give maybe a little sneak peek on, or something we should look forward to?
I am continuing to do the Ready Room for Paramount Plus. We're online in all the usual places, and I've actually started work on the next book. I'm not ready to talk about it yet. It's at that point where it's a bunch of different ideas that I'm kind of smashing all together and making tons and tons of notes about before I start pulling things out and turning it into something. But I know generally what it's going to be. And for the first time ever in my life, I'm like, hey, this thing that's coming out now is really cool and I'm really excited about it. But what I'm really excited about is the next thing that I'm doing, because it's exciting and fun for me, not because I feel like I have to top this thing or somehow prove to anybody that this thing wasn't a fluke. And that's a big deal for me, because that was a thing I lived with my whole life, that imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And I just don't really have it anymore. I finally got to a place in my life where I can feel really proud of myself and confident and just look forward to what's coming next. And if it ends up only mattering to me, that's totally fine, because it is the work that matters, not the way it's received.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy for you to find that realization. You have quite the fan base behind you. Everybody's supporting you in everything you do. Just know that, and we are looking forward to your next project. For right now, people can go out and get Still Just a Geek, available everywhere where books are sold. Wil Wheaton, thank you so much for the time.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks so very much. Have a great day.